On the planet Earth, man had always assumed that he was more intelligent than dolphins because he had achieved so much. The wheel, New York, wars, and so on, whilst all the dolphins had ever done was muck about in the water having a good time. But conversely, the dolphins had always believed that they were far more intelligent than man, for precisely the same reasons. Time is an illusion, lunchtime doubly so. Isn't it enough to see that a garden is beautiful without having to believe that there are fairies at the bottom of it too? He felt that his whole life was some kind of dream, and he sometimes wondered whose it was and whether they were enjoying it. I'd far rather be happy than right any day. If there's anything more important than my ego around, I want it caught and shot now. You know, said Arthur, it's at times like this, when I'm trapped in a Vogon airlock with a man from Beetlejuice and about to die of asphyxiation in deep space, that I really wish I'd listened to what my mother told me when I was young. What did she tell you? I don't know. I didn't listen. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, after a second or so, nothing continued to happen. This planet has, or rather had, a problem, which was this. Most of the people living on it were unhappy for pretty much most of the time. Many solutions were suggested for this problem, but most of these were largely concerned with the movement of small green pieces of paper, which was odd, because on the whole, it wasn't the small green pieces of paper that were unhappy. So this is it, said Arthur. We're all going to die. Yes, said Ford. Except, no, wait a minute. He suddenly lunged across the chamber at something behind Arthur's line of vision. What's this switch? He cried. What? Where? Cried Arthur, twisting around. No, I was only fooling, said Ford. We are going to die after all. The answer to the great question of life, the universe, and everything is 42, said Deep Thought, with infinite majesty and calm. Now, it is such a bizarrely improbable coincidence that anything so mind-bogglingly useful could have evolved purely by chance, that some thinkers have chosen to see it as the final and clinching proof of the non-existence of God. The argument goes something like this. I refuse to prove that I exist, says God, for proof denies faith, and without faith I am nothing. But, says man, the Babel fish is a dead giveaway, isn't it? It could not have evolved by chance. It proves you exist, and so therefore, by your own arguments, you don't. Oh dear, says God, I hadn't thought of that, and promptly vanishes in a puff of logic. Oh, that was easy, says man, and for an encore goes on to prove that black is white and gets himself killed on the next zebra crossing. Anyone who is capable of getting themselves made president should on no account be allowed to do the job. One of the things Ford Prefect had always found hardest to understand about humans was their habit of continually stating and repeating the very, very obvious. We demand rigidly defined areas of doubt and uncertainty. Far out in the uncharted backwaters of the unfashionable end of the western spiral arm of the galaxy lies a small, unregarded yellow sun. Orbiting this at a distance of roughly 92 million miles is an utterly insignificant little blue-green planet whose 8 descended life forms are so amazingly primitive that they still think digital watches are a pretty neat idea. "Did I do anything wrong today?" he said. "Or has the world always been like this, and I've been too wrapped up in myself to notice?" All through my life, I've had this strange, unaccountable feeling that something was going on in the world, something big, even sinister, and no one would tell me what it was. "No," said the old man. "That's just perfectly normal paranoia. Everyone in the universe has that." Another thing that got forgotten was the fact that against all probability, a sperm well had suddenly been called into existence several miles above the surface of an alien planet. And since this is not a naturally tenable position for a well, this poor innocent creature had very little time to come to terms with its identity as a whale, before it had then to come to terms with not being a whale anymore. This is a complete record of its thoughts from the moment it began its life to the moment it ended. What's happening? It thought. Excuse me, who am I? Hello? Why am I here? What's my purpose in life? What do I mean by who am I? Calm down, get a grip now. Oh, this is an interesting sensation. What is it? It's a sort of yawning, tingling sensation in my... Well, I suppose I'd better start finding names for things if I want to make any headway in what, for the sake of what I shall call an argument, I shall call the world. Let's call it my stomach. Good. Ooh, it's getting quite strong. And hey, what's about this whistling, roaring sound that's going past? What I'm suddenly going to call my head. Perhaps I can call that wind. Is that a good name? It'll do. Perhaps I can find a better name for it later when I found out what it's for. It must be something very important, because there certainly seems to be a hell of a lot of it. Hey, what's this thing? This? Let's call it a tail. Yeah, tail. Hey, I can really thrash it about pretty good, can't I? Wow. That feels great. Doesn't seem to achieve very much, but I'll probably find out what it's for later on. Now, have I built up any coherent picture of things yet? No. Never mind. Hey, this is really exciting. So much to find out about. So much to look forward to. I'm quite dizzy with anticipation. Or is it the wind? There's really a lot of it now. Wow. Hey, what's this thing suddenly coming towards me very fast? Very, very fast. So big and flat and round. It needs a big, wide-sounding name like ow, ound, round, ground. That's it. That's a good name. Ground. I wonder if it will be friends with me. And the rest, after a sudden wet thud, was silence. Curiously enough, the only thing that went through the mind of the bowl of petunias as it fell was, "Oh no, not again." Many people have speculated that if we knew exactly why the bowl of petunias had thought, that we would know a lot more about the nature of the universe than we do now. Arthur blinked at the screens and felt he was missing something important. Suddenly, he realized what it was. "Is there any tea on this spaceship?" he asked. In those days, spirits were brave. The stakes were high. Men were real men. Women were real women. And small furry creatures from Alpha Centauri were real small furry creatures from Alpha Centauri. The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy also mentions alcohol. It says that the best drink in existence is the pan-galactic gargle blaster, the effect of which is like having your brains smashed out with a slice of lemon wrapped around a large gold brick. The last ever dolphin message was misinterpreted as a surprisingly sophisticated attempt to do a double backward somersault through a hoop whilst whistling the Star-Spangled Banner. But in fact, the message was this: "So long, and thanks for all the fish." The bird that would soar above the plane of tradition and prejudice must have strong wings. "Exactly," said Deep Thought. "So once you do know what the question actually is, you'll know what the answer means. And we'll be saying a big hello to all intelligent life forms everywhere, and to everyone else out there." Well, yes. Idealism. Yes, the dignity of pure research. Yes, the pursuit of truth in all its forms. But there comes a point, I'm afraid, where you begin to suspect that the entire multidimensional infinity of the universe is almost certainly being run by a bunch of maniacs. And if it comes to a choice between spending yet another 10 million years finding that out, and on the other hand, just taking the money and running, then I, for one, could do with the exercise. Vogon poetry is, of course, the third worst in the universe. The second worst is that of the Asgoths of Krea. During a recitation by their poet master, Grenthos, the Flatulent, of his poem, Ode to a Small Lump of Green Putty I Found in My Armpit one midsummer morning, 4 of his audience died of internal hemorrhaging, and the president of the Mid-Galactic Arts Nobling Council survived by gnawing one of his own legs off. Grenthos was reported to have been disappointed by the poem's reception, and was about to embark on a reading of his 12-book epic entitled My Favorite Bath Time Gurgles, when his own major intestine, in a desperate attempt to save humanity, leapt straight up through his neck and throttled his brain. The very worst poetry of all perished along with its creator in the destruction of the planet Earth. Vogon poetry is mild by comparison. And all dared to brave unknown terrors, to do mighty deeds, to boldly split infinitives that no man had split before, and thus was the empire forged. Nothing travels faster than the speed of light, with the possible exception of bad news, which obeys its own special laws. It is, of course, perfectly natural to assume that everyone else is having a far more exciting time than you. Human beings, for instance, have a phrase that describes this phenomenon: the other man's grass is always greener. The Shalnatak race of Brupakindian 13 had a similar phrase. But since their planet is somewhat eccentric, botanically speaking, the best they could manage was, the other Shalnatak's jupilberry shrub is always more mauvey shade of pink russet. And so the expression soon fell into disuse, and the Shalnataks had little option but to become terribly happy and contented with their lot. Much to the surprise of everyone else in the galaxy, who had not realized that the best way to not be unhappy is to not have a word for it.